plane found in the mountains north of Tonopah could belong to a missing pilot. Michael Martin went missing after taking off from the North Las Vegas airport on January 2nd. His plane vanished and stopped transmitting its location.
Imagine a family whose husband and father just vanishes into thin air.
He left out of North Las Vegas airport and then never made it back.
Well, that's exactly what happened with Michael Martin of Las Vegas, Nevada. He jumped in his small single-engine Piper airplane and went for a flight without telling anybody.
No one knew he was in the air that day.
Michael's family grew concerned enough that they reported him missing to local authorities.
When we hadn't heard from Dad in a while, we had filed missing persons.
That missing person report kicked off a massive search of all the terrain in and around Tonopah, Nevada, and Mount Jefferson. The search consisted of aerial assets, ground crews, and people from all over the country doing whatever they could to help his family find their missing father.
The phone calls came in from the U.S. Air Force.
The sheriff's office is hoping to get some help from the National Guard.
So we've gotten good news. We found the plane.
He's located the wreckage on Saturday.
And then bad news, we can't get to him.
But rough terrain and strong winds have delayed access to the crash site.
It's a nightmare. You don't know what to do. You can't do anything. Your hands are tied.
Crews could only get within 3 to 4 miles of the plane.
Search efforts had been suspended earlier this week.
Everyone backed out at the last minute.
It would be weeks before it would be possible to recover a body.
We don't know if he's in the plane or not yet.
But at the very least, we want to know where he is. We need to be able to bring him home.
Sitting ducks waiting for that phone to ring, and that's when you guys came in.
We began to get more and more emails and messages from many people asking us to get involved.
And that's when Heavydsparks had reached out. We're very thankful, and he was the answer to our prayer.
Michael and his airplane were going to be left on that mountain for an uncertain amount of time, leaving this family with all sorts of questions, wondering what happened to him. Was he okay? Was he there? We knew at that moment that we had to help.
What does it mean to bring Michael home?
Everything. We've been married 40 years, and I'm going to miss him. And I appreciate you guys bringing him home to us.
So once I made the decision that we were going to jump in and help this family, I got a hold of Michael's daughter, Katie, and got all the information we could regarding what had happened, where he was, what the exact location was, and what were the challenges that all of the existing rescue crews and search parties had encountered. And once we got their approval, we jumped into action.
Beg you to please be with us, bless and protect us. Please bless the family, they'll be comforted. Please bless the aircraft to be able to function properly. We're grateful for all these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen. Thanks, buddy.
Alright, so from here, we're going to step down to Delta to avoid the restricted airspace. I got a fuel check going, 2 hours at the current speed, but this will pick up here once we kind of turn south. From what I understand, we're going to have swirling, all sorts of mountain turbulence, right? So I want to be as light as we possibly can.
So here's what you need to know about the crash site. It sits at about 11,300 feet on the top of Mount Jefferson, Nevada. Mount Jefferson is an extremely rugged mountain range with lots of sheer cliffs and extremely difficult to access by foot and pretty much impossible to access by ground vehicles. So the only way to get to this plane is by air. The higher you get above sea level, the more power you need to be able to accomplish a mission. This is why I believed my UH-60 Blackhawk was pretty much the only aircraft capable of completing this mission for the family.
We're 10 miles out from Tonopah. Pull up ATIS 118, 875. Alright, before landing, brakes are released. We are locked to the fly, direct. 800 APU up, APU's coming up. I think our emergency services over there. I see all those black vehicles. There's our crew. Pressure up, released. Roger that. Channel's coming off.
plan was we needed to get ground crew down to the airplane to assess the situation and figure out whether or not Michael was actually in the plane. We knew that the likelihood of anybody surviving was very slim to none, but we knew that we also had to check.
We are securing all of our equipment that we are going to need once we get on the ground. Make sure it doesn't come loose on us.
The plan we came up with consisted of having our friend Brett and Leif, Diesel Dave, and our camera guy Eric rappel out of the helicopter to be able to access the crash site because it was basically on the side of a cliff, and from what we saw in the pictures, the only way to access was to essentially rappel in.
So what they're saying is minimum temperature is 11 to 14 degrees, winds out of the northwest up to 18 to 20 this afternoon with gusts near 30. So wind definitely going to be a factor for you guys there.
I think we're at about 6,000 foot elevation and a little breezy. Well, we're headed up there to 11,000 foot elevation with about 15-20 mile an hour winds. And I'm gonna be flying with my door off. I'm flying left seat today, I'll show you. The reason for that is because this is the seat that I typically fly in, but when you're hauling an external load, you need to be able to see the load. And so I'll have the door off over here, and then I will basically be leaning my body outside the helicopter to be able to see the whole load, which is why we're gonna pull the door off. So it's gonna be a little bit chilly, which is why we're gonna be all layered up.
So we headed out to the crash site with all of our gear, all of our ropes.
Wind's still pretty good right now. I've got you at looks like 30 knots and holding.
And I was ready to pull a hover above the cliff and allow the ground crew to exit the helicopter on the rope and be able to get to the crash site.
Which this terrain looks a lot better than I expected, honestly, from the pictures. Jimmy, right here to the left. There's that base. Okay, that's the base up in front of us. Oh, I see it. You see it? Look at your 11 o'clock. Got it. Okay. That's actually more doable if we need to set up top, we can actually rig up top.
We saw the cliff that sat above Michael's airplane wasn't quite as inaccessible as we had originally thought, meaning we didn't need to take the risk of having people rappel out of the helicopter to be able to access the crash, where instead we could just land on top of the mountain and the ground crew could hike down a few hundred feet to be able to get to the crash site.
We can pick our way down through these boulders, right, and then just traverse over.
We'll get the load, the tools set to sling load in, get you guys traversing down to the site. We will pick up the tools from the line, come around through this little bend here, get as close to you as we can.
Okay.
Grab my crampons out of that tool bag.
We hiked down the ridge and we've made it to Mike's airplane. So kind of a somber feeling knowing that he was here doing something that he loved, and now we're here to retrieve him and bring him back to his family. It's a pretty gnarly cliff face in a really pretty cool canyon, cool pocket right here, but now we gotta figure out how we're gonna get it out. All right. It's a gnarly wreck.
We prepared all of our rescue equipment, rigging, straps, and supplies into one bundle, which I then picked up with the helicopter.
All right, generator's coming on. Nice and slow. Torque's 57, 56, I'll be calling it out for you. 75, 55, 56. Nice and easy, small movements. Okay, load is up, okay.
Load is up. Load's looking good.
Speed is 30, we'll just kind of keep that. Climbing about 200 feet per minute. But looking good, TGT's good, 50% torque, engines are good. Okay, alright, proceed to the site.
He hovers right over us, but I'll put your goggles back on. He's about 200 yards out that way.
Alright, the big issue we're gonna have here is because we're facing into the wind is our tail rotor and the cliff behind us. Hook is armed. Slowly working it and holding steady. Your VSI is looking good. Slow down, we're gonna hover. Alright, Jaime, alright, we're about on top of them. Okay.
I have eyes on them.
Okay.
Hold that center, hold that. You're good, center, swing.
Tail's good, tail's good.
Down,
tail's good.
hold, come right, forward, 3, 2, 1, hold. Down and contact on smell. Hold that. And slack is free.
I'm letting go. Punching it, watch the hook. Move left as you punch.
Hook is free, line is clear.
Alright, hook is coming safe. Hell yeah, boys. Hell yeah.
Then we had hovered over the side of the cliff and was able to drop essentially right next to our ground crew so that they had all the supplies they needed without having to haul 300, 400 pounds worth of gear down this precarious mountainside. We returned to the top of the mountain and landed.
Nice work, dude. That was awesome.
Where we then got in communication with our ground crew to get an understanding of what they were seeing and what game plan we needed to make to be able to get everything off the mountain. It was at that time that the ground crew advised us that they had found the body of Michael and that they were preparing it and putting it in a body bag.
Yeah, I've got him.
Okay. Good to go. We've got the body.
Roger that. I'm going to notify the sheriff. We got the body now.
Copy that.
It's definitely an interesting moment. Anytime you recover a body, for me, it's like, it's very reverent energy, very calming, to be honest with you. It's not scary. It doesn't feel morbid. It doesn't feel, gruesome, even though obviously the guys are down there picking up frozen body parts. It's just a very reverent thing. You're bringing the guy home. He's been up here for a few weeks and his family has no idea what his status is, and now they're going to be able to get that closure. So kind of a surreal atmosphere up here is kind of the best way to put it.
He was a self-made man. If he wanted to learn something, he did. He was very brilliant.
Great father-in-law. He welcomed me into the family like I was his own. Treated me that way since day one. So
He would fly cancer patients and burn victims anywhere they needed to go.
He loved riding his motorcycle and flying, kayaking. He was an outdoorsy man. From being a handyman, so he'd read something, he'll build it. Never knew what he was going to do next.
Always kept us on the edge of our seat. Always had something new he was working on.
6 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild, so we'll keep his memory alive for them.
1, 2, 3.
Once that was secured, we set the body bag aside and the crew began to rig up the airplane so that we could lift out as much of the wreckage as we possibly could. After about 2 hours of rigging and prepping, our ground crew radioed us to let us know that the load was ready to be lifted.
everything looks good across the board. I got you at 37% torque, and we'll hold my altitude, head this direction.
The plan was to lift everything out in one single trip. The reason we got involved with this recovery was due to the fact that the family had completely run out of options. All of the state and local authorities essentially had to call off their search because either resources were limited, the terrain was too challenging, there was no aircraft capable of even accessing the crash site, let alone recovering the aircraft or the pilot's remains. And I knew that we had the aircraft and the crew capable of performing this mission. I'd like to extend a special thank you to everybody who rallied together to help make this happen. From the Nye County Sheriff's Office, Nye County Emergency Management, State of Nevada Emergency Management, local firefighters, our contacts at the NTSB and FAA, the game warden who hiked 8 grueling hours to initially find the wreckage, and especially my crew who came together and faced this extremely challenging task head on. So special thank you to everybody involved, because at the end of the day, it boils down to this: no man gets left behind.